G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, fights on the land, on the sea, in the air. Bizarre Brain Comics. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, fights on the land, on the sea, in the air. Hi there, Sarge here. This is Gary again for Bizarre Brain Comics. And since just this past week we had Veterans Day, I thought it would be appropriate to pay honor to our service members and veterans like me, like my brother, like my dad. We're all Navy vets, and and we'll do a war comic this time. And it was just and then I thought, why not use that, have some use for that GI Joe figure that I showed there. And today we're going to talk about Our Army at War, number 275 from 1974, featuring a story of Sergeant Rock. Of course, this is a 100-page book, almost entirely reprint material, except for the lead story, and that's the one we're going to talk about here. It's Graveyard Battlefield, written by Robert Kanigher, or Kanigher, I've heard it pronounced both ways, and drawn by the great Russ Heath. And what would a tough Sarge be without a cigar? Ha! Too bad we don't see Rock smoking cigars. Anyway, here to about Sergeant Rock. Sergeant Rock. His full name is Sergeant Franklin John Rock. He made his first appearance in Our Army at War number 83 in 1959. He's just a little bit older than me. He was created by Robert Kanigher and Joe Kubert. And Rock was an infantry sergeant serving in the European theater in World War II, commanding the platoon of soldiers known as Easy Company. And now for the most part, the DC war comics were very reality grounded, although they did stray once in a while. But for the most part, they were pretty much reality grounded. Of course, then they have the haunted tank, and that features the ghost of Jeb Stewart. But you never know whether it's just all in that one guy's head or the ghost is actually there. And there have been a few crossovers with Sergeant Rock and Batman a couple of times, and the Viking Prince, and a few other things. And they deviated a little bit again with the haunted tank. They have these Nazi soldiers who are basically robot men, I should say, robot men, and because it's just basically a brain inside a robot body, and one of Rock's greatest enemies, and who I really liked, was the Iron Sergeant. The Iron Major. He's a Nazi SS officer who had lost his hand, and it was replaced with a magnificent steel hand, which made a very impressive weapon. And he was already big and strong anyway. And then, as I said, this was drawn by Russ Heath. Russ Heath. He's from 1926 to 2018. And he's a comic book artist, and he's best known for his work on the DC War comics and his work on Playboy magazine's comic feature Little Annie Fanny in the 60s. And some of his drawings were the basis of oil paintings without credit or compensation by Roy Lichtenstein, the 60s pop artist. And those paintings were Wham Blam, OK Hotshot OK, and Brat-a-tat. Heath started, in case you ever want to look him up, and we'll talk about that some other time if I get a chance. Heath started working in comics in 1947 as in a staff position at Timely Comics, of course, which later became Marvel. And his first art job was on a Western story for Timely. And he eventually did some Captain America in 1949. He did war stories for Timely and EC, and then of course some later for many years at DC Comics is for what he's best known. And he did a lot of Sergeant Rock, and I guess he was co-creator of the Haunted Tank stories, although I guess he didn't care for Haunted Tank nearly as much. Okay, let's go take a look in the pages here at this here story featuring Sergeant Rock, Our Army at War. Okay, here's our Sergeant Rock cover. There's a close-up of Rock, and of course this cover features just a little bit from 4 of the stories featured in here, and it is drawn by Joe Kubert. And then this is the story here, Graveyard Battlefield. Okay, and this story is a little different. There's a certain poignancy to it, and I think is very good for Veterans Day. Let's take a look. I'm gonna take one more look at G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe. Yeah, this is an old figure, but it's not the first one I had. I got one for my 7th birthday in the 60s. Maybe it was my 6th birthday. I can't remember. But I've had this one for nearly 30 years, I guess. Sergeant Rock. And the title page. Describing the stories, and then open it up to a double page spread. And here we see Rock, and he's talking directly to the reader. Yeah, it's me, Rock, Sergeant, Easy Company. After 24 days and nights on the line, a battered, exhausted Easy was being yanked back for a rest. Yep. So we're getting a little time off. Asking where Rock's going. He said, I'm going to go see somebody I haven't seen since World War I. Takes off in the Jeep, and then wham, there's an explosion. And just as he's getting into this graveyard, it says Sergeant Rock of Easy Company in Battlefield Graveyard. It's a very appropriate way of doing the title. So his Jeep is flipped over, and it must have been a bomb, and he's right at a graveyard. Buzzard aiming to dig a new grave. Yep. He says, look, I mean, it's a great explosion. Look how the realism in that Jeep. And I just love the expression in Rock's face. It's just like, he just looks weary. Big, tough, and weary. He's got a lot of responsibility being sergeant for Easy Company. Yeah, and here's this German plane coming, trying to take him out. Finally, his Jeep gets taken out completely, and of course he thinks maybe that's the end of Rock. Well, Rock looks like he's down, but he's not out. He crawls over and he grabs his Tommy gun, gets behind one of these crosses in this graveyard. And this German plane comes in just to strafing him. As he gets closer and closer and closer, and you see here he's hiding behind this stone cross headstone for cover. And he's able to take out that Stuka. He's heading right straight into that machine gun fire. Kablooey! Magnificent explosion. He takes him out, and now here we see something. Now look at the expression on Rock's face. Of all the grave markers for me to use as a tripod, it's Sergeant John Rock, 1918, 69th. It's his father's grave, which is where he was going to go visit his father's grave. I promised I was going to visit you, Pop. There he is. Exhausted, and just because his father had died in World War I right there. Then suddenly, someone's taking pot shots at him again. Well, for crying out loud, he ducks for cover, and we see there's a small squad of Nazi soldiers with an officer over in the trees, and they've got him pinned down. And the Germans are spreading out. Look at the way he did the background, the forested background, the hands, the background, the shading, the shadows. Everything's so great. And you see the sweat dripping down this soldier's head, down his face. They're looking for Rock, and they're looking for Rock, and boom, Rock's able to get that one, takes him out, and he sneaks up. Oh, not quite sneaky enough on this guy. He takes a blow to the head, but his helmet absorbs it. Takes this guy out. Boom, brap, with his Tommy gun. Well, now the others are going to know where he's at. My head's still spinning. Lights going off inside my skull. And then his Tommy gun gets shot out of his hand. For crying out loud. And he has to run for cover. And it's the officer. I think he's the last one that's left. Gets a shot at him again. The determination in Rock's face. Oh, just great. I just love Russ Heath's work. He did magnificent. Nice and clean. Great detail. Great anatomy. The uniforms, the equipment, everything is just spot on. Now that German officer spots the remains of his men. Blood. I knew I hit him. So he's trailing Rock by his blood, and comes to this creek and this little foot bridge. So he looks like he's going to start crossing the footbridge, but no, he's suspicious, and that's why he's suspicious, and for good reason. So he gets into the water and takes a pot shot at that grenade, that booby trap grenade, and blows up the little bridge, and then he slogs through the water, still looking for Rock, but Rock's hiding below. It's a great scene. Got his knife in his teeth, and he takes that German officer by surprise and takes him out with his knife. Again, the expression, the exhaustion, the effort, and then the compassion. The guy's still alive. He can't just let him drown there. He pulls them out. He knows he's dead. He's fatally wounded. I can't leave you like a gutted fish. What were you doing patrolling near a military cemetery? My father, Lieutenant Hans Groltz, was killed in 1918. He is buried in the cemetery, in the German military cemetery beyond the hill. So Rock picks him up. And as exhausted as he is himself, he carries this dying soldier over to and places him on his own father's grave. And he thanks Rock for it as he dies. And if you look on the headstone, this German officer's father and Rock's father died on the same day. And that's the end. Oh, wonderfully written, so poignant. It's got the action and it's got the characters. What else? What else could anyone say? And as much as I like Sergeant Fuhrer from Marvel, I don't think any of his stories are as touching as that. And some of the other stories are just about as touching. This had the one. I won't get into that one, but this Navy one, Lucky Save Me, and I don't even get to. That's kind of horrifying and very touching. And I thought that would be appropriate for Veterans Day. Tribute to all the veterans out there. Hope you like it. Share it with your friends, your comic book friends, or just share it with veterans. I don't care. Like, share, subscribe. Remember, comics are art.